Record. All righty. Good morning, everybody. We do have a pretty hefty morning of activities. This second virtual course is pretty much one of my favorites because we do a mock teacher evaluation. And if you've never done a mock teacher evaluation or, in-person teacher evaluation, this kind of a quick process. And so this is why this is one of my favorite virtuals that we do. Let's see. The right page in my notebook. Still an old school teacher with all the notebooks and the things written out. So before we start, I always like to present it to the class. Would anyone like to say a prayer for us this morning to open our class and get us started? Don't be shy.
I'll do it, Dr. Cockrell.
All right, thank you.
Okay, let us pray. Father God, thank you for bringing us all together today and wherever we are coming from to learn how to, advance education for students. Let us keep students in mind. Let us proceed today with you in mind and to exhibit you in all things that we do. And it's in your son's most precious holy name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Louise. So as I said before, we have a pretty thick little bit of things to get through, but I like to stay true to time. If I say 10 o'clock is our dismiss time, we will dismiss 10 or before. So again, we have two activities. We're going to look at a couple of classrooms via YouTube, and you will need a sheet of paper, just a sheet of paper. Doesn't matter what it is. It a sheet of computer paper or notebook paper, but you will need a sheet of paper, just a plain sheet. And what I will ask that you do is fold it in half. Hot dog fold for all of us elementary people. You're going to do a long hot dog fold like that. And on the left side, write teacher, and on the right side, write student. So you will need that. Okay, so just put that to the side. We'll come back to it, but I like to tell everybody before we get started so you're not trying to rush and grab it. I am gonna share my screen with you guys so that we can look at our module just to get back into Canvas. We've had a pretty lengthy break, and I know some of us, not you, but me, we've gotten out of a little bit of the school part of this routine. And I just want to go back and just kind of look at some things that are going to be coming up. But mainly, I want to talk to you a little bit about your SMART goals template that you are going to be turning in for this second assignment. I'm letting my document download, so give me just a moment. Got it. Okay, so you all have seen the sample, but that's what I'm going to share with you first. The sample that is actually on your Canvas page. So this is what you will turn in for the second part. Now let me restate that because I don't want there to be any confusion around your SMART goals assignment. So the first thing is it's a building document. So you don't turn one part in without the other part. So let's keep that in mind as we're getting all of these things ready to be turned in. You have your first document, that part one where you did the chart, right? So that's the first part. This would be page two of your data project. So you'd have your cover page, then you'd have the first chart that just says the two areas of weakness, what instrument you use, that sheet. Then this would be the second page for you. And on that second page, you will have this lovely chart here. And I know the question, I think I answered it via email, but if you don't know what these percentages are, but you have the data, if you take, say, 50 kids, and I have four of those kids that are a level 5. So 4 divided by 50 will give you your percentage of level 5 students. And the same thing for your 4s, your 3s, your 2s, and your 1s. Alrighty, so then you'll put in this box your actual SMART goal. Whatever you decided will be there. Your strategies, who's responsible for this? Some things that we put in place is literally our reading coaches, our literacy specialists, academic tutors. It doesn't fall back to the teacher, and that some of your tier 3 supports and things of that nature. But then if it is a small group that's taking place in your classroom, it may be the classroom teacher, it may be the assistant teacher, and anyone else that's pulled in to track the progress of that. What is the timeline? These things may be for a semester or 9 weeks, and they could be for a week time or a 2 week time. Then what resources are you using? Whether it's the textbook, if you're reviewing MVPs or past assessments. And then what's our evidence of progress? How are we tracking these things? Can I go back and say on this standard, when we tested, if we're using end of the year map to where we are at first semester, what does that progress look like? How are we checking for progress? That's where we are putting all of the evidence of progress in that box there. And you have to do this for both of your SMART goals. And now let me also say that a lot of times the people responsible, it doesn't change very much because you use the exact same people for different things in your building. The strategy should vary a little bit because how we teach one standard, we don't teach another standard in the exact same manner. Your resources may stay the same or they may change. Timelines may change. Evidence for progress may look different. But whatever you're using, just make sure you're filling that in its entirety. Any questions about that?
Can I ask a question about the performance chart?
Mhm.
So we did like a standard. We did two standards. So would we just need to find like the performance from, I know like MDE would tell you like the percentages of each school. Because we just had like what standard wasn't met, like the lowest. And so would I get that information and just put like who scored a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 on that? Or
So I'm a tad bit confused when you
okay.
say the standard. So your data should have been broken up in a way. Remember, if you go back to the first class and I showed you how that data was broken up. So you should have what I call the item analysis is what it's called. And it should break all of this down if it's map data.
Okay. So we had two standards that were like we looked at the map data and there were two standards that was the lowest. And so we
Hmm.
put that as the one that we needed to improve. And so we found strategies for that one.
Okay.
But like what I'm asking is like for the percentages though.
This part here.
Yes, ma'am. I know like MDE, like so I just need the performance of all students on that test, correct? Like that's kind of
Right.
the thing I'm asking. Okay. And I think I can get that from MDE because then I know like they have a file and they can break it down as well. So can I use that one too?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to
As
get some.
long as it's the same data. So
Okay.
these should match the same assessment. It should be, okay, I'm looking at, say, 2024's assessment in ELA for fifth grade. Can I have the breakdown for this particular group of students and on that assessment?
Okay.
Yes. And MDE can get you all of that because that's who got it for me when I was doing my dissertation. So yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any additional questions?
Dr. Cockrell,
Mm-hmm.
this is Crystal Woodard. I'm in the car traveling. My son has a visit at college this morning, so I may lose service, but I'll try to connect back.
Okay.
All right.
Have fun.
Thank you.
I don't know.
I could hear you speaking and then you just went mute. I don't know what happened.
What about now?
Okay, got it. Mhm.
Okay, I just want to make sure that these strategies and that we're using are teacher centered, not student centered, correct? Like as far as in like how they're going to meet the goal, like what the teacher needs to do to meet the goal.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Your strategies are what is the teacher doing to implement change on this
Okay.
standard? Yes.
Okay.
And so, like, and I will be honest with you, I don't like these strategies that are listed here. Again, this is a document that was put in the module by Dr. Sellers. Accountability towards daily small group instruction. What is that? Make
Yeah,
that.
that's why I asked because I've done SMART goals before and they were all like teacher based, and I was like, this kind of vague. So I
Yeah,
was just making sure.
these are not my favorite. Implement guided reading in whole group and small group reading instruction. Okay, tell me what that is. When you start, I don't like vague over the top comments because it does not do it. It doesn't get down to actually what is the teacher doing. So when you make strategies, it's specific to what are we doing to implement something to help kids learn.
Right, like pretty much the teacher will uh blah blah blah.
Now, you don't have to do it in that. I mean, you can. I'm not taking away from that, but knowing exactly is what I'm looking for, though.
Okay.
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 All right. Any additional questions before we move forward?
So looking at the rubric, can you talk through root cause and
Yes, I'm gonna
there's
get to that when we get to our narrative. Yes,
okay.
ma'am. I'm with you. All righty. So moving away from this chart, I'm gonna go back. I just want to make sure I reiterate this enough times. Don't forget, this is a building document. You have your cover sheet. You have your first chart from project one, your first project you turned in. Then it builds to this particular document, and it's going to be multiple pages. You should have at least 2 pages because you have 2 goals, right? And then the next page in this is your narrative. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing this. Nope, nope, that's not what I'm trying to show you. I restarted my MacBook. It should be working this morning. Okay, so getting to the rubric. So here we go. When we start talking about the narrative portion and the root causes, and I think I touched on this in the first call, but digging deep into why a student is missing the things that they're missing. Sometimes, and I will say absenteeism is a big deal right now, and sometimes it is absenteeism. If I notice that I have a population of students that's missing this standard, but it's also the same population of students who are absent every time I'm teaching in this class, that's when absenteeism can go back to a root cause. But if I'm teaching a specific math standard, but it has a prerequisite skill that should have been taught, say, in fourth grade to be able to do this fifth grade standard, well, that would be my root cause for this particular standard. Same thing with students in ELA. If I'm teaching them how to summarize, but they can't tell me the main idea of the text, then I'm never going to get to summarizing because we have some students who have some deficits. Does that kind of help out with what you're thinking, Ginger? A root cause goes back to the heart of the problem. and you want to address that. And I will tell you guys, when I'm reading the narrative, this is where a lot of students lose the most points because they don't dig into what the root cause is. Telling me, oh, COVID, no, COVID is 4 years past. It is not a root cause anymore. That is not an excuse. So, but y'all won't get there, but the class is right after COVID. That was the root cause for everything. But COVID is a root cause because kids weren't in schools and they missed the prerequisites. If we dig deeper, we can get to those root causes, right? So that is what that is going to entail. And then the other part, guys, please, 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 please attach your data. It can be a second upload, but you need to have the data to support the things that you are saying in your charts, right? Whatever those SMART goals are, I need to be able to say, okay, they are targeting this standard based off of this data. And I do spend time, I look through all of it, more or less because I'm interested. I like to see what your strategies are because I'm still an educator. I'm still a practitioner. Some strategies I write down because it may be something we need to implement as well. So make sure we're spending the time we need to get all of these things developed. Any additional questions?
Is it okay if we add the data to the end of the document for you? So it's all on one
Yes.
page. And then I have a question on the rubric. It talks about the book. Do I need to talk about the domain? I kind of get the strategy. So like on my part, I kind of put like the domain and what element it went to, like on my strategies. Did I have to do that or was I overthinking it?
You were a little bit overthinking it.
Okay.
Never bad to refer back to our textbook. I will never tell you that that's bad, but I
Okay.
also don't want you to go into like a 2-page document. Keep in mind, I'm only looking for about a page of a narrative that kind of summarizes exactly what you thought about the problem areas. So if you
Okay.
go back to this narrative portion, what areas identified as needing improvement do you need to determine root causes for? You're writing
Okay.
a paragraph. I don't need a page necessarily. I just want you to tell me what those problem areas were. What were those root causes to those problem areas? And just document that. And I know another question that somebody had, and I always like to bring the questions to the group because somebody else may have them, is about around the narrative. Everyone's narrative should look the same because it's a group project. So don't go rogue and do your own thing in a group project. Stay the course. Everybody's kind of doing the exact same thing. Not kind of. Everybody is doing the exact same thing. All right. And each group member, remember, you do have to drop your own document in the module, into the Dropbox. All righty. Any additional questions around that? All righty, moving on, singing a song. Y'all have Dropbox 5 and 6 due tomorrow, but y'all are experts on those Dropbox assignments with the domains. I don't really have to touch on those. I've enjoyed reading them, but y'all pretty much got that. You're in virtual class. You must write 2 SMART goals. Keep that in mind. Um, I'm just making sure I didn't forget anything. Again, that's why I take notes and write things down. Okay, moving on. Going into next week, for your next week assignment, you will do your mock evaluation. And so we're going to jump into this right now. I ask y'all to get a sheet of paper. If you would, go ahead and pull that. And on that sheet of paper, on the left side, teacher, right side, student, right? That's where we are. I'm gonna show you guys, these things are in your module. You can get to everything I am showing you from your module. So this is the teacher growth rubric for Mississippi, and we are still in this same rubric. Nothing has changed. I was actually supposed to go to a training with MDE Friday, but didn't have enough participation, so they canceled it. on this professional growth system. I particularly like it. I know some principals, administrators in the districts think it's cumbersome, but I believe all administrators should be in classrooms. I feel like all directors should come and view classrooms. That is my personal stance. I am in classrooms with my teachers every other week. I take my roster of we have 50-ish teachers in our building. Now, when I say teachers, I mean standing in front of kids. That's your SPED, inclusion resource teachers. That's your specials teachers, your classroom teachers, and including my specialists and all of those people that are in my building, my EL teacher, my counselors. Every one of those people, I am in their classrooms. We take our roster, we split it in half. I have one assistant principal. She takes the half of the roster, and I take the other half. And I say it's in half, but it's really not. My load is always heavier than hers, only because all of the brand new teachers, they are on my roster all year long. Because in that first year, if there's a problem, if I got to put you on an improvement plan, or if, there's anything I need to keep an eye on, that will fall back to the building administrator, not the assistant principal, your specialist. That is going to be your heavy, right? So all personnel falls back to the principal. So I always take the brand new people. And I'll be honest with you, I was trained to do it that way by my predecessor, whom I worked under. Um, so with that being said, the state does have specific guidelines. And I'm not going to go through this whole document with y'all, so breathe a sigh of relief. There are just a couple of high points that I like to touch on as we're in this class. The first is this observation and feedback cycle. This is very important because if you're not in classrooms doing observations, how is it that you're able to give a teacher clear, specific, actionable, and timely feedback? Because one thing's for certain, you will have teachers who need help in different areas of their teaching, whether it's their craft of teaching, whether it's their methodology, whether it is just classroom management. You will have to help in some areas. And then my other one I've added is if it's just technology, because that's a big thing now for veteran teachers. They don't really want to do all this extra when it comes to technology. And then during these different feedbacks, this is your chance to change practices. When you're sitting one-on-one with a teacher, for them to be able to feel safe in your office or in their room, wherever you meet with them, and to have a vulnerable conversation around things that they feel like they need to change in their practice. And after you do that, you do have to do follow-up and additional feedback. And I think of that circle as a continuum. This is what we do all year long. That's how we are instructional leaders. If you want to be an instructional leader, you got to do observations. You got to have a feedback cycle. And if you think you're too busy for that, then you're going to feel like you never know what's going on in classrooms. That's my 2 cents of advice. Anyway, moving on. The observation and feedback process, you collect. How do we collect? We're collecting through the observation. You're looking for relevant evidence in a lesson. Then as the observer, you're sorting and organizing that evaluation using your rubric. You make interpretations. And this is where I caution most people, is with the interpretation. We know what we see because we have a lens that we see through. And most of our lenses, they're attached to the way we are as educators. I am probably a strict teacher where I may walk in a classroom and that teacher isn't as strict as I am. Her kids are more loose and they may talk more and they may have more freedom to move. But that works for that teacher. But through my lens, I'm thinking poor classroom management. But when you sit down with that teacher, so going back, we're interpreting what we've seen, and you ask those open-ended questions. And then you glean, I like to hear my kids' thoughts, so I allow them to talk more. So what you may see as poor classroom management is actually that teacher's way of getting informal feedback. That's their informal time of saying, okay, I know this group understands what's going on. This group doesn't. Let me sit with them for a little bit. So before we come to a conclusion of our interpretation, it's always good. And that's why I say all the time, feedback, having that sit down with a teacher is the most vital part of this process, because I know what I see, but I don't know what was the thoughts behind it. So you should always have evidence in your discussion with the teacher on how to improve practice, but you also need to have ears to hear why that lesson was structured the way that it was structured. Okay. Now, in your narrative, you have to be very specific in a part of your narrative. It asks, what are the classroom observations? The actual number of them. And as you can see, I don't want you to go outside the box in your answer. Do not. I'm going to tell you, most people that go outside their things and they try to be inventive in their wording are the ones, I don't know what you're saying. I'm very basic in this answer. According to the Mississippi Growth Profession, whatever, MPG, in the state of Mississippi, there are 3 minimum classroom observations, 2 of which are informal. 1 is a formal announce. I don't need you to be creative, guys. That's where this one goes wrong. But this has to be in your narrative for you to get full credit for this narrative. Everybody got that? Okay, I'm gonna take your silence as a yes. Alrighty, so that is what the minimum requirement for the state. Do I do that? No, I have multiples. My standard is I like to have at least 3 informals before I do a formal. So everybody does these things differently. I do 1 formal announced in the fall. I do 1 formal unannounced in the spring. So I go above and beyond. But my district also requires 2 formals and not 1. So every district takes this and does something different, but you do have to meet this minimum state requirement. So that's why we always like to let you guys know that the minimum in the state is 3. 2 informal unannounced and 1 formal announced. And I think of informal unannounced as my walkthroughs, because I walk through every classroom in the mornings. That's part of my day. I walk through my 3rd and 4th in the morning and my 5th in the afternoon. And that's because my 5th grade is at specials in the morning and my 3rd and 4th do specials mid and end of day. So I try to walk in every classroom every day, so I do not have to let them know I'm coming, but I'm also not documenting anything during that time. And all of my informal observations are announced because I send out my schedule. So they know when I'm coming and when they have to sit down and chat with me. All right, I'm going to move away from this document if there's no questions at this time. Okay, hearing none. So the next thing I'm going to share with you guys is the 2 documents that you have to turn in for this assignment. When you do your your mock evaluation, you will turn in a sorting form and a scripting form. And these 2 documents are different. So that's why I'm going to talk about them in detail. But I'm going to talk about the actual scripting form first. Then we're going to do a mock evaluation, and then we'll come back and talk about the sorting form. Everybody understands? I like to let you know where we're going. Oversharing is my thing. Okay, let's look at our scripting form first. Okay, so the document you folded in half on your sheet of paper is so that we can mimic this scripting form, what the teacher is doing and what the student is doing. And so when you're doing your mock evaluation, you will complete this form as you're watching the video and talk about what you see the teacher is doing, what you see the students are doing during the lesson, right? And you'll just script those things out. And that's why it's called a scripting form. And then we're going to try this one time. Okay, any questions thus far? I know I'm going a little bit quickly with this, but I don't want to go past my time. So let me get my video ready. We're going to view 2 different videos for this mock evaluation. So you'll need to leave a little space for the second one because I'll ask you to do the same thing twice. So the first video we're watching is a kindergarten teacher, and she has all of her students on the carpet, and she is going to do a lesson. What I would like for you all to do is simply writing what you see. No inferences about what you think about the teacher. You're going to write what the teacher is doing and what the student is doing. That is it. Okay? I'm going to start the video. If you can't hear it, y'all let me know, because sometimes that's the weird thing about Zoom.
Doing some thinking for a moment, because I was thinking about the books, 2 of the stories we've read. Dominic, off the table. Oh. I was thinking about spring. No. And then I was thinking about the story Down the Hill. And I was thinking, Davian, I was thinking about some of the things that are the same about the stories and some of the things that are different. CJ, in your spot, sitting up. That are the same and some of the things that are different. We're going to put those things up here on what we call a Venn diagram. Can you say that? Venn diagram. Oh, one more time. Say it. Venn diagram. In order to do this, I'm going to need your help. So first, I need you to push your bodies a little closer. Not too close. Remember, don't touch the person in front of you. Let's go. Look, there's room right here. Scoot up. CJ, you need to be out from under the table. Okay, eyes right here. Thank you, Kiesia. Eyes are up here. She's ready to learn. James is ready. Now I'm going to need a scout. A scout is going to be someone who watches, someone who's being responsible, sitting up. Dominic, would you come on up and be our scout first? Nope, Dominic. Sit down, Stevia. Sit down, sir. I want to show. Yes, Miss Whitmore. You need to show Dominic that you can be responsible. Sitting up straight and tall, eyes up here. Dominic, your job is to pay attention to Miss Whitmore and to watch the class to see who's being responsible. Responsibility is doing what you're supposed to be doing. So you're sitting up straight and tall, you're listening. When it's time to turn and talk to your friends, you turn and talk. Okay, here we go. Let's see here. I'm thinking, we know what happened in spring. Let's think back to what happened in the story Down the Hill. Let me help you. No, sit down. Sit down. It's falling down. Fabian, sit down. Sit down. Thank you, sir. Look here. What happened at the beginning of the story Down the Hill? Was it snowing in spring? Down the hill. In the story Down the Hill, it was snowing. Snowing. But I'm thinking, in the story Spring, was it snowing? No, because the snow melted. The snow had melted. I'm gonna put that because that's different. The snow melted. That's not the same, is it? Because it was sunny over here, huh? Both stories, they are the same. In both stories, they are at Toad's house. Then Toad's is what? Oh, did that happen in both stories, Davian? Yeah. Did Toad say blah here? Yes. Did Toad say blah here? Yeah. Yes. Listen. Frog said, winter is beautiful, come out and have fun. Blah, said Toad. Yeah. My name is So Toad said, Blah.
Okay. This is the interactive part of this day. So you will have to talk and you have to come off mute. So let's talk about what the teacher is doing. What is the teacher doing?
She's using a Venn diagram to discuss a story, and she's comparing and contrasting spring and fall. Not spring and winter, I think.
Okay. Okay, somebody else. What did you notice the teacher is doing?
She's modeling the thinking out loud. So their internal thought processes, she's modeling that out loud for them to have.
Okay.
And she also used positive reinforcements when she was trying to get CJ to do the right thing by praising Dominic for sitting up tall and doing the right thing and teaching them what it was to be responsible.
Okay. So y'all have hit on the design of her lesson. You've hit on the learning environment. And then let's talk about what are the students doing?
There were multiple students that were being disruptive by talking out of turn, getting under the table, standing up, different things like that.
Okay.
But there were also several students who were doing exactly the right thing. I don't know if they were sitting on a carpet, but whatever they were sitting on, I thought it was really to see her engage them with, okay, now come in. And they all got really, really close, and it seemed that they were engaged and really excited about the lesson. So the majority of kids were engaged.
Okay. Any other shares about this teacher? So let me ask it this way. Did you see student understanding? See head nodding. So yes, we did see student understanding. When we start talking about student understanding, we are looking at the students, assisting students and taking responsibility for learning and monitoring students' learning. I did like how the child said blah, and you could see on her face, she was like, "Ooh, that's a good one, but let me make sure he's right." And she went back and read the story again so all the kids could have that aha moment. So that's part of student understanding. Providing multiple ways for students to make meaning of the content. She had the pictures as well as she was writing in the Venn diagram. So for kids who may not have a fundamental understanding of what she's writing, they can refer back to the picture clues. So I thought in student understanding, she was doing a positive job there. Her learning environment, it looked like it was at least fall-ish, winter-ish, because she had on a scarf and all of those things. And it's kinder. Okay. Go back to, those of you guys who've never worked in an elementary school and saw kinder, it's like herding cats. You get them in the basket, they jump out of the basket again. And so I personally felt like she was wrangling that kiddo in, positive praises, but she kept teaching. When I first watched this video, guys, and I will be honest with you, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the poorest classroom management. Put that little fella right next to you. He needs to be in your lap almost. But then as I kept looking at her system of support, she was moving along in her lesson. She did not get stopped. One part that we typically can't see or glean from a video is the professional responsibilities piece. You don't know if that teacher is engaging in professional learning. You don't know if there is effective communication with families and guardians. So we're going to look at our evidence form now so we can talk about these areas more in depth. Because this is another part that you will have to turn in with your mock evaluations. And so when you're looking at your particular video you select in the Canvas module, you're going to be looking at a teacher teaching. You're going to do your scripting, but then you have to take that scripting and then rate this teacher's performance, right? And so when we look at domain 1, the lesson design is broken up into different standards. Lessons are aligned to standards and represent a coherent sequence of learning. What do you feel like this teacher would earn If you were to say at this moment, was she a 4, 3, a 2, or a 1? You do have to come off of the mute in order to respond.
I think of maybe a 3 because I don't have any evidence that she reflects with like collaboration because I can't see that part. Because she had the picture, she had the words, and then she kind of used that background knowledge to kind of figure out the difference between the seasons.
Okay, I like it.
agree. I would do a 3 as well.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next one. Lessons have high levels of learning for all students.
I think I would go with a 3 here just because I don't feel like she had the um like a challenging task really to for the higher kids to maybe do.
Okay.
But the rest of the stuff was obvious.
So I want to pause right there for just a minute. See, you chose 3. So for your assignment, you would have circled the 3 there. And down in this space where it says evidence, that's where you would have written out what you just stated. And that way you can support your response. And that's the thing about any teacher evaluation. And I want you to think about yourselves as teachers. Every time I walk in to do an evaluation, I try to put myself back as that classroom teacher and who spent half the night worried about that evaluation the next day. I preferred an unannounced because an announced one sent me spiraling sometimes because you're like, okay, I got this and this and this and this and this. All my things are prepared. So you try to give the benefit of the doubt for most things. So that's why I want you to just say, when you put that evidence, support why you provided that particular score. All right, then we move into domain 2, and this is student understanding. And that's why it's important when you're writing the student is, listing what that student is actually doing. So when you get back to rating this area, you can have clear understanding whether or not learning was taking place. Because we can teach all day. If learning didn't take place, it was for naught, you know? So what would you rate on this one?
This one's a little hard. This is a little harder on that, like, because you're at a rug and it's a whole group setting. I mean, I teach kindergarten, it's the same thing. You can have a lot of kids on task and those couple that aren't, but it's hard to tell individually because you may have somebody that knows it's so shy that doesn't say, and you're not sure if they got it or not. But I would still say, like you're giving benefit of the doubt, I would probably still say 3. But that in a whole group setting, that's one thing with me with those kind of PG is you're always trying to think, how can you hit the individual child? Because you could get marked low on a whole group setting.
You could, but that's why you don't do a one and done either.
Yes,
That's why those
exactly.
informals are so important
Mhm.
because you on one formal on one day, will you see everything that's on a rubric? Never. You never can see all of that. So that, yes, I would say that's where your evidence is very important. And that's where that feedback is very important because if you've never seen it and you're sitting with that teacher and you just ask the question, so what do you do to ensure learning of all the students? I've come in and I've seen your classrooms on multiple times, but never do I see individualized students, an informal evaluation for individualized students. And then they can discuss that part with you. Okay, moving on. Provide multiple ways for students to make meaning of content. Again, going back to what Shannon just said, we just saw a smile group on the carpet. We don't know we didn't see multiple things going on. And then you have domain 3, the culture and learning environment. So when we start talking about managing a learning focused classroom community, are there routines and expectations in place? That's the bigger thing. Even if a class doesn't sit neat and tidy and quiet, can you see routines? That's important. I'm not going to go through the whole document. I just wanted to give you guys an idea of how you will fill this out. I do want us to, we're going to view a different video. This one's different than the last one because I like to look at 2 different viewpoints. And you may think totally different about the classroom you're going to watch next. And I will be skipping through it. So just notice I will skip ahead a little bit just because I want you to see certain things. But you're going to do the teacher and the student on this one as well. Okay, we're going to do that this time. Okay, let's try it again. Really? You've been working out so well in this last few minutes. Let me make sure I have it open. I do have the right one open. All right, one more go. This is my favorite video. I need it to work. There we go.
What are we here to learn? We are. I can identify the main idea and supporting details from what I read and create a summary using the supporting details. Okay, give yourself a pat on the back if you're ready. Okay, let's turn those papers over that you have on your desk. This is your opportunity to do a closed reading activity where you read that article. You can use your pencil to highlight any information that you think will help you in finding the main idea. We're going to be using the reading cards, the blue reading cards. So when you're done, simply turn it over so we'll know when we can move on. You may begin. What makes it different from for a water strider? A water strider will be played. Your entire group is one team. I will tell you what row or column we're working on at that time. Whenever I show you what row or column we're working on, your team is going to try to find the answers to those questions. They must be highlighted in the text, and you must be able to tell me where you found it with the paragraph and the sentence number. Here we go. The first thing we're going to work on is across the top. What insect does a water strider resemble? How would you describe the size of a water strider? What fact can you select to show the speed of a water strider? Go.
The large mosquito. It looks like a mosquito. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so put a spider right there.
What's your answer going to be?
A large mosquito.
Okay.
The size of a water.
You're going to find it in the text. You have to be able to highlight it to use it for an answer. What fact can you select to show the speed of a water strider? Abby has an answer. Share it, Abby. What did you see?
I saw sentence 5. I think it's in 1. Water spiders also have
Go on and finish.
good vision and can move quickly.
Awesome job. Awesome. Okay, I heard my first group, water striders. I heard it. Okay, let's see if they've got it. Now they're going to help you out because remember when we respond, the first thing we do is tell the paragraph, then the sentence number, then we give our fact, but then we answer our question. And I'm going to type the answer up here. That way you'll make sure you've highlighted the correct section. Here we go. Which insect does a water strider resemble? Hudson, can you tell me where you found that answer?
Paragraph 2, sentence 1 of a water strider is a water bug that looks like a large mosquito.
Okay, so he said paragraph 2, sentence 1. And what is your answer then?
Large mosquito.
A large mosquito. He is correct. Looking good. Next one.
All righty. So it's different group of kiddos, different teacher, different grade level, still reading instruction. Let's talk about what did the teacher do? And those of you who have not come off of mute to share, this is your turn.
One thing she did, she made sure they knew what they were doing today by going over the objectives, and explaining, what each one was to make sure they knew exactly what they were going to learn in the lesson for today.
I like it. We call that framing the lesson as part of the day. Kids need to know the roadmap for where they're going. So lesson design, she designed that lesson for every person in that room. And that is so important for your dyslexic students, your special education students, your ADHD students, for your kid who had a bad day. We don't think about those kids that just had a bad day, but it is so important. You know, when your kid gets home, for those of you guys who are parents, and you're like, hey, what'd you do today? And you get that look, because they don't know, because no one told them. I did math. Well, what did you do in math today? Today in math, we're going to decompose fractions. And then when a kid comes in and says, oh, I decompose fractions today, you stop cooking or you stop doing what you're doing. You know the word decompose? It is so vital for kids to do that. I mean, for teachers to do that for kids. Thank you for pulling that out. I'm sorry I got on my soapbox. It's one of those things. Ginger had the pleasure of being with me at a training because she's a special education director for MDE. And I get on soapboxes. I'm sorry. I do that because I'm very passionate about how we educate kids and how we love them and build relationships. And when you are the administrator going in the building, into the classrooms, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for, is a kid learning? I don't care how long a teacher stands in front of kids and teach till they're blue in the face. If a kid didn't learn anything, you just wasted however many hours you stood in front of the class. So kids having an understanding, student understanding is what we do, is why we do what we do. All right, I'm off my soapbox, I promise. Next person, please share. What did you see the teacher doing?
She made sure that the kids could support their answers with the text, because one kid just gave an answer, but she came back and said, make sure you can find it in a paragraph.
Yes, supporting evidence. We want kids to write. That's what we ask them to write, all right? Give your justification for that answer. Natalie.
That's what I was going to say, is that she made sure that they knew that they weren't going to, it wasn't correct until they had all the parts of it. She told them specifically what she wanted. They had to highlight, show text evidence. Why did they answer the way they did? Show where they got the answer, which is a huge, huge skill that they're going to carry with them forever. Because we see that in 5th grade a lot. That if they didn't get that foundation in 4th, that becomes such an issue as they go on. So that they're not going to be able to just say the answer is A. Well, why is it A?
Christy, I saw you came off mute. Go ahead.
I was just saying, she clearly, this is like established procedures and routines based from, because you could tell she was just reminding them of the things to do, not explaining it for the first time. And you could tell by how the students responded and went right to work. They knew exactly what was expected, even down to the positive feedback after the student answered, their procedure for that. Like, you could just see all those routines established in her class.
I would agree. That's that culture and learning environment.
I was just gonna say on that, her classroom management, she had a procedure set in place for when they were finished to flip over their cards, so she didn't have to, speak to them and acknowledge that they were done. They could just move right along because she knew.
Yes. Michael, I saw you had come off of mute.
Yeah, that's what I noticed was the cards. That was her way of getting feedback from them and letting her know that they were finished with the reading assignment, was to flip the card over, and it went back to kind of what we spoke about a minute ago, as far as that was already a plan that was in practice. That was a procedure the kids were very familiar with. So very organized. I thought that was really good.
Okay. And y'all know this as teachers, when you have established procedures, you can go so far in a lesson. When you don't have those procedures established, you're literally constantly saying, sit, don't do that, blah, 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 blah. It's like a just all day constant classroom management. Now let's switch gears to the students. What did you notice the students were doing?
I noticed that they were engaged and they were actively working, but together. So they were able to discuss it and they were able to kind of, I guess, so to speak, cut the fat off of the information and focus on what's important. Because a lot of kids that I have now, they're unable to answer what the question is actually asking. And so they kind of answer it how they, for lack of a better word, how they want to. Like they think that this is what they're asking. Instead, they're just focused on what they actually are being asked and they're answering the questions. And I also, I thought that was really good how she can, the routine was great, but I think she lets them think and she lets them maybe have some of that struggle time that a lot of kids nowadays are not quite as good at struggling through the thinking.
Yes, they have to have some productive struggle. And wait time. You see, I started this morning with the prayer and I just waited. Wait time. We as teachers hate wait time. We want to get to it. Come on with an answer. Let's go, let's go, let's go. But some people have a slow processor, a slow working memory. And so it takes them a little bit longer to get there. So if you just wait it out, have a cup of coffee, like a sip or two, not the whole cup, or a couple of drink swigs of your water bottle, you will see how kids will jump up and start answering. And I would always say to the class, I'll say, hey, y'all, I got time. We can sit here and wait a few minutes because I'm not going to think today for you. I left my brain at home. Y'all got to help me build it back. And they would be like, oh, she's not answering any questions today. Nope, she's not. But, just getting them to know that you're going to wait on them. Sometimes it's hard for teachers, but I know we did a PLC around wait time, and it was just so funny how the teachers in the building were like, I do that. I literally do that. I give answers. Oh my gosh, I'm an answer giver. And I'm like, aha moments happen. So just thinking through that when you're giving feedback to a teacher, sometimes that's the most powerful feedback. I noticed that you asked a question and 5 seconds later you gave the response. Maybe wait a full 60 seconds. It's sometimes good for kids. What else did you guys notice that the students were, and I like to say owners of their learning? How did you notice that in the kids that were working in their groups?
I mean, I feel like even though it was a group project, they still individually went to their own paper, was doing their own evidence. I mean, they knew they were responsible still, even though they may come together and all answer as a group, kind of like these group projects, you still got to do your part as well. And they knew that, and they had to show evidence of that because she was going to take up each individual person's paper probably later and see that they also highlighted and showed how they got it. And they couldn't just write down whatever their friend had.
I like it. Yeah. Christy?
They weren't, I noticed they were all expected to read the text and they were responsible for reading it. So it wasn't just one person in the group had to read it to everybody. They all had to have that responsibility.
I did like that. So this doesn't seem that complicated, right? It's not. It is not that complicated. What I will say that the hiccups that generally happen with this assignment, let me get to it. Give me a second. Is literally the upload. The upload is where it seems that I would say I communicated it. It's on the web page in the module, but sometimes we forget is that you do have to complete a scripting form A as well as that sorting form A, where you circle. And guys, let me also say this. If you print it and write it and then scan and upload it, I'm fine with that as long as, and I can read kindergarten handwriting. So I can read your adult penmanship. Because these forms sometimes are not the easiest to use in PDF. They're not the easiest even when you convert them to Word. But if you can and you can type on yours, that's great. If you can't and you have to print them and write it out and then just scan it in, I'm okay with that, okay? So don't think, oh, I can't get it to type. I'm very flexible with that. But you do need to turn in both of these documents, as well as you have to write a 2 to 3 paragraph report, not pages, paragraph report using APA format. And you're going to choose one of the videos. There's a 3rd grade ELA, a 6th grade ELA, a 4th grade math, and a 10th grade math. We were trying to decide videos that you guys could watch that were in different age categories and different things. But you're going to pick one to do your mock evaluation from. And you're going to use the 2 documents in order to complete that part. After you're done, you have to do the narrative. Keep in mind, it's a 2-paragraph narrative. I'm going to go back to what I said when we were looking at the manual. It needs to tell, you're briefly covering what occurred during the observation. But this part right here is the most important part for me because I'm going specifically and I'm looking for that. The expected number evaluation and the type that is required in a given year in the Mississippi PGS. If you're in a different state and you're doing something different, this assignment is based off of that document and what you report. Paragraph 2, this is when you can say I, me, my, and all the personal pronouns for your reflection. Paragraph 1 in 3rd person. Paragraph 2, go to 1st person, talk about what you felt during the evaluation. Was the instrument easy to follow? Was it difficult? And did you find it difficult to understand? So that's this assignment in a nutshell. It is time consuming, and I will tell you it's time consuming because you got to watch a video and script while you're watching that video. Then come back and do the evidence, and then do the narrative. So it's layers to it. So it's not in your mind. You may think, oh, I can get through that. It's pretty quick, but it's not just because of the pieces to it. And there's your rubric, and I try hard to stick to this rubric. Every time I grade, I pull it up and I grade from it. And try to leave you a nice little comment if I'm, confused about something. But that's the assignment. Any questions about that? Okay, hearing none. I'm going to stop share on that. And the last thing, and I just want to touch on it, not go into detail because I know it does not apply to everyone. Okay, let me look. I think I'm gonna have my notes here. I'm gonna touch on it because of the way our virtual calls meetings are. We won't have one before this is due. Let me get to the right place. For those of you guys that are in the specialist and above, you have to do a best practice assignment. There is a video. It is not up, Miss Dr. Sellers will tell you in the video, it's an older video, but you do have to do a best practice assignment. Watch that video to get some information. But what I want to share with you is what this assignment entails. It is because you're already in groups, you all can split it off, and one person takes elementary, one person takes middle, and one person takes high school. And this is one of those assignments that will count towards your hours, your practicum hours. So when we're talking about that, you're talking about best practices in elementary. And what is a best practice in elementary? I'm a PBIS school, so PBIS is a best practice. The way we schedule is a best practice. I would even say that we have a staff meeting every Monday, so everybody gets the same information every week. I tell the teachers in the summer before we start school, schedule appointments that are not on Mondays. I'm not lenient. I'm not flexible on Monday. I want you in the room. If you got a sick kid and you got to make a doctor's appointment for a sick kid, I am not crazy. I do know some things are more important than a staff meeting. But that is best practices. When we start looking at middle school, the way we intake kids, the way we dismiss kids, that's a best practice. What does that look like? High school, scheduling in middle and high school looks different than elementary. So that is a best practice. Some high schools and middle schools implement PBIS as well. Some of them have a parent liaison where they're keeping in contact with parents and getting things done. What are best practices? This assignment also requires you to get with the administrator that you will be shadowing and doing your practicum hours with to have conversations around best practices. Before I started teaching this course, I had a teacher going through the master's program, and I was her person. And we sat down and talked about what are things I felt were best practices in elementary school. So that's the thing you need to do with this assignment, but don't wait until it's due, because it's a group project. You need to go ahead and have conversation. February 9th will be here before we know it. So you want to start having these conversations so when you meet with your group, you already have it in mind or written out or ready to go. There are examples here how we do bulletin boards, memos, charts to gather information, those data meetings, all of these things that are taking place in schools, they're best practices. But you do have to have 5 for elementary, 5 for middle, and 5 for high school. And if your group comprises of all elementary people, you're going to have to go outside your comfort zone and talk to some high school and middle school people. So that is not an email I want to receive. I don't have anybody in my group in middle and high school. I'm going to have to tell you that you're going to have to network on this one. Okay. And you're in a group, you're in a big cohort of a group. You may have somebody in this class that's in a middle or a high school that you can talk with. But please give credit to the administrator that you spoke with. So you do need to document that on your reference page or even at the bottom of the elementary slide. Be creative. If you are sending me Google Slides, please give me permission to view them. I'm just telling y'all all the hiccups I've had over the years. That, and if it is a Canva presentation, if you download it as a PDF, I can view it. I can scroll it up and view it. If you send it to me as a presentation, again, I have to have viewing rights to see it. PowerPoints generally come through easily. If you're doing a Microsoft Word document, I will tell you, please make it presentable when you do this type of an activity. Because we are a virtual class, you're doing the you're doing the best practices as if you were going to come to class and present it as a group, right? All of us remember our class days where we stood in front of everybody and had the clicker. So that's what you're thinking when you do this type of an assignment. Don't just throw something together and send it in, because I am looking for the presentation. How does it look? Is the information something that people can pick up and take with them? Also, what I want to share with you, what I like to do with this best practice assignment, if you get down here in week 10, underneath week 10, you'll be able to see all of the best practice assignments, because I do go back and I upload them to this so that when you leave this class, you have some best practices that you could glean from when you start your role as an administrator. Or if you're already in the role as an administrator, you can go back and look through those. Oh, we don't do these at my school. I need to implement. So they will be listed here in the module for you to go back to. Again, that is going to be due on February 9th. What I want to bring your attention to also is that your week 10 discussion is due on February 12th. That's different. I don't think that's a Sunday. And normally our assignments are due on Sunday. This one is always a little bit early so we can finish up the semester. It's a Monday. No, I'm wrong. It's a Wednesday. So it's due on a Wednesday. Going forward, if you have assignments in there that are not turned in, guys, I don't know if you've realized we're at this part of the trimester, we go a little quicker than we do in the beginning part. There are no down weeks. We don't have a Thanksgiving. We don't have a Christmas. So everything is graded and uploaded more quickly on my part. So if you need to redo something, if you get a comment from me that asks for that, you really need to get back in there and get it done and resubmit. submitted, okay? Any questions, comments, or concerns about those things? Okay, so those are our upcoming things that we have to look for. This week, you guys are turning in group project 2 as well as domain 5 and 6. That's tomorrow. Then the following next week, you'll be looking at your mock teacher evaluations. And then the next week, and I did not touch on this, but you do have your 6 domain PowerPoints that is due. So what this looks like is these papers that you've been writing on all of the domains, you are going to take that, condense it into one slide, okay? And going back to if you use Google Slides, PowerPoint, or Canva, that's your prerogative. But you're condensing each one of these into one slide, domain 1. And you are going to tell what would an administrator do to make sure you are leading and making decisions based upon your school's data to improve student achievement. Guys, I don't want your paper again, okay? Do not upload, go and cut and paste that paper. You're going to bullet point this. You're going to short, like little quick short things that you're going to put on here, put a couple of cute graphics and upload it. I've read your domain projects, and by tomorrow I would have read all domains 1 through 6. I know if you have a fundamental understanding of these domains. What you're doing now, again, I go back to what I said about your best practices. This is if you were in a face-to-face class and each one of you had to present on the domains to let me know that you know what they mean, right? So quick and to the point, but giving the girth of each of these domains, what they actually meant to you, and answering these questions as how this would be something for you going forward. Hopefully I explained that in the right way. But that's what this project is. And looking at the rubric, when I grade your PowerPoint, your Canva, or whatever you're using, I'm going to see, did you clearly articulate what an administrator would do to lead the school making decisions? Did you clearly tell me what an administrator would ensure students are receiving, how you are ensuring students are receiving a viable and guaranteed curriculum? I'm going to go through each one of those to see if you clearly stated these things in those slides. Do not use 2 slides for one. You get 1 slide per domain, as well as a reference slide. Do not forget to do the reference slide. Any questions about that? Okay. All righty, Dighty. I know that was a lot. Any questions up until this point about any of the things we've discussed? You guys have my email. You will email if it comes up. I know. All righty. Okay, so the last thing I have to do per the standard of my class as a teacher for this class rather, is that I get to spend the last minutes going through the last domains with you. And I do have a lovely PowerPoint to go through. And guys, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not gonna really spend a lot of time on this PowerPoint because of the sheer fact that you have read these domains already. I'm gonna hit the high points of what they are and what they mean, and then we will conclude our class. Okay, let's get to it. Be thinking of your questions that you may possibly have for me. No, that is not what I need y'all to see. This is what gets to be frustrating for me. One more try. And we're there. All right, domains 5 and 6. I'm going to tell you guys what I've told the last few cohorts that have come through. For your core values, you need a little notebook. Doesn't have to be anything big. It could be the smallest little notebook that you carry around. that as you are going through this program, as you are doing your practicum hours, if you're already an assistant principal, a director, or anything, but you want to go into a building as a principal, take that little notebook and things that rub you so wrong, write that down. That is going to be the thing that builds your core values. And I say that because what you don't want to happen is if you get in the role and you don't really know your identity as a leader. Okay? Because that's what really is your compass. Core values is your compass. And they have to be in a way that you can be transparent with them and you can communicate effectively of what they are. Right? And so if you ask anyone in my building, what does Dr. Cockrell value the most? They're going to say she values building relationship with kids and keeping them safe and making them feel loved. Those are my core values. I don't have to think about those because I know that's what I passionately believe in as an administrator. I don't think we can teach children if we don't have a relationship with them. I don't think you can get kids to grow if you don't believe they can. And I also don't think kids can come to school and learn if they don't feel safe and loved. See how that's two parts? I told you how I feel what the teacher, what our roles as adults should be, and what I feel like students need. So that's your core values. That's what the heart of what you believe in as a leader. And believe it or not, every teacher in your building has core values. Every assistant teacher in your building has core values. Every janitor, custodian, cafeteria worker, bus driver, they all have core values. But what yours are what guides the school because you stand in front of them when you're doing professional development, when you're doing a PLC, when you're doing just a random pop-in visit. Your core values guides is the compass for your school. So you need to know what they are. So this month they're not one thing, and when we come back in January, there's something else. You know, we start in August and then January we have an epiphany and this is who we're going to be. We need to know who we are before we start leading people. Okay, that's my soapbox. I get on them. I'm trying to wrangle them in. All right, so when we look at our elements, being transparent, communicating effectively, element 1, and demonstrating professional growth. Element 2, you're going to have to build trust of your staff and your community. And then they got to trust that you can make decisions that are best for, and it says each student, but you're making decisions best for someone else's child. I think sometimes we forget the gravity of that. These are other people's kids that they trust us with. And so that as a leader, knowing your core values builds trust because you can communicate that. And that you have to make sure that your school is perceived as a safe and culturally responsive place. Perceived. I need y'all to pay attention to that word because perception is reality. What do the outside people perceive the building to be? All right, values are instilled in the school and create the climate. You all are experts on culture and climate. I read your papers, you are. So you are going back to those 4 core things: transparency, trust, cultural responsiveness, and safety. Those are the 4 things of a school. Like that is how your climate is perceived every day. Culture, the way things are done, norms, tradition, open or closed environment, collaborative. I will say as an education community, opening our doors after COVID is still something we are learning how to deal with again. But I think we're on the good mend on that. But I do feel like that's a thing that we struggle with post-COVID. Climate, the way the school feels when people walk in the building, does it feel open and friendly? Does it feel cold, closed off? And is it a result of your culture? Going back to that. Do people feel safe when they come in your school? Do they feel valued? Is the school inviting? And I will also say the feeling of being valued is an area we have to work really hard if you have a very diverse community. Like I have a very diverse community. So when my EL parents come in, they have to feel as valued as when a parent comes in for an IEP meeting, or a parent comes in because their student is excelling. We truly have to work on making sure everyone, every walk of life in our community feels valued. This is you, the school leader, has a profound influence on the way every member of the system, teachers, students, parents, and support staff perceive the values of the school. Going back to what I said, you set the tone. A perception which in turn impacts the performance of teachers and students. Do your teachers feel valued? Because if they feel valued, they'll work hard for you. If the students feel like the teachers value them, they'll work hard for them. It's always a cycle. It just keeps whirling in a circle. Element 1, I'll let you guys read through that. It's straight from Carbo and Marzano, so you probably have read it already. But as a leader, you have to continuously improve. You have to keep reading, going to professional developments, getting a group of people that you can lean on and learn from. Hopefully I didn't go too fast. I'm sorry. Are you working from a place of integrity? You have to have trust from your staff, your school community. And again, goes back to is guided by what is best for each student. You know how teachers come in and they're like, I don't want to do this. This is just, I don't know why we're doing this. And when I always ask the question, please make it student focused. If your complaint has something to do with kids not learning from this experience, or they're not going to gain any knowledge from this curriculum. When I have teachers come in and say, well, my kids, da 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 da, I listen, I stop. But please don't tell me you don't want to do the PBIS party because it's noisy. Kids are noisy. That's the way they are. So we're not going to do away with it. All right, moving on. That's that third bullet. It may not be popular amongst teachers. The school leader ensures that the school is perceived as safe and culturally responsive. This one I think sometimes gets left undiscussed a lot. Academic safety. Are teachers making their classrooms a place where kids can take risks? If you have a classroom where you see 5 kids raise their hand out of 25 every day, what are the other 20 kids afraid of? That's the question. Are they fearful in that classroom? So that's a part where you have to literally start drilling down and figuring out, do kids feel academically safe to take risk in classrooms? We spend time on these areas because they're glaring, but this one sometimes is a silent one and we have to pay attention to it. And I know I said this at the beginning, what you value is the climate of your school. It creates it. It starts living there. So be really conscious of what you believe in. That's where that notebook comes in handy. And I had a past assistant superintendent tell me that. She was like, if you're going to want to be a principal one day, you need to figure out what you believe in, as not as a person, but as a leader. All right, my favorite one is resource management. I think I started this class telling y'all this was the area of my life that I was very scared of because I did not have knowledge of. Understanding all the codes and where money is spent, how much you have in every budget code, which ones can be moved, which ones can't. That is like one of the most daunting tasks for a new principal. I was an assistant principal for 6 years, but I sat in the budget meetings, but I did not feel like I needed to know all the things. Well, when I got the big chair, it was like, uh-oh, I should have been more focused and asked more questions. But I have learned, and it's been the thing that I'm glad I've learned because I know what the needs are because I'm the one in the meetings with the teachers. My bookkeeper doesn't know the teacher needs. She just knows, oh, they don't even use that. Do you know they use that or not? Do you go in classrooms? So you have to understand what the needs are so you are allocating fiscal funds in the right way. And they always need to be supports that are effective for instruction and achievement for students because everything we do should be data driven. Even when we spend funding, it should be data driven. Any questions about these three elements? Because we have to be compliant. And I think that's my bigger thing is the compliance piece because I needed to understand why we couldn't move funds. Like the money's sitting there and it's for this school. Why can't I use this money to go buy, technology? Well, it's not allocated for that. And this, money came from federal funds and you can't move it to that. Okay, good. I don't want to go to jail. So you have to be sure about that. Operational management, and this is one of your PSEL standards, and which means it'll probably track back to a practicum you'll have to do. So pay attention to those. But this is the day-to-day business of operating a school. As the principal, you'll have to approve teachers' time. You'll have to approve purchase orders. You'll have to approve field trips. You'll have to approve any money that is spent by the teachers. So you have a whole other job outside of being the instructional leader. You got to be the operational person too. And I'll tell you, if you are doing observations, feedbacks, and in-parent meetings and doing all that stuff, this part of your job happens after kids are on buses and kids are at home. My bookkeeper does not come to work when everybody else comes to work because I need her after hours. So I have staggered her time where that she's with me after everybody's gone. So we can look at budget items. We can look at who's requesting buses because she's receiving all that information and that's her role. I believe in distributive leadership and I put people in the right seat on the bus so that I can rely on them to do their job. We have 3 grades, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, but in those 3 grades, I have 28 gen ed teachers as well as 600, almost 600 kids, right? So I can't be everywhere and do everything. And that's just reality. So her job is to get all the things together for me. We meet at the end of the day so we can have conversations around what they're asking for, what their needs are, so that I can then make decisions based off of that. But if her hours were set like, say, my data specialist, her job is kids and parents. Well, when kids and parents are gone, she can be gone, right? My receptionist's job is to receive parents and kids and answer the phones and open the doors. When the school day ends, she can leave. My bookkeeper's job is to work with me. When does she have time with me? Is after hours. Those are some of the things that when you become an administrator, you have to look into forming all of those people's times and when you're going to meet with people. So that's when I spend time with my budget, my technology to support teaching and learning. I have to have time to meet with my management of that area. So when we start digging into this area, your element 1 is your fiscal technology and physical resources. My assistant principal is in charge of fixed assets, but she's going to be there with me after school and we get to talk about who needs what in terms of technology, and resources. Again, distributive leadership. I can't be in charge of everything. I want to be in the know of everything. And I'm not a micromanager, but everything that falls off the tracks is going to come to me. And I need to know what those things are. So when she comes to me and say, well, she's lost this and it has a fixed asset tag on it, I can be able to know what's going on. That's not micromanagement, that's management. Right? Micromanagement is me walking with her to do her job. I'm not gonna do that. I don't have time for that. I have committees for things. My leadership committee is made up of my teachers that are in charge of their department for their grade. And when I meet with them, that's what we start talking about. Do you have the materials you need to teach effectively? Right? Student achievement is linked to effective use of resources. Who would know best what the resources need to be? The people that are teaching. Giving teachers a voice and having teacher leaders helps in the domain 6 area because you don't know all the things. And every year in February, we talk about what are your resources? What are you not using anymore? I don't want to pay for a technology program that not a kid in this building is using. That's a waste of funds. Let's pull that back and invest in something we actually need. I do not spend a lot of time in this area. My PE teacher does a lot of grant writing. I have teachers that do the grants that are local grants, like for our auxiliaries and different things, junior auxiliary and things. My PTO is very big with building those business partnerships and our community members. And so a lot of that, again, distributive leadership is taken care of. That is not on my plate to do it every day. I know in smaller schools that don't have fully functioning PTOs, the principals do a lot of this themselves, or they delegate it to like a counselor to make sure to build those outside community partnerships. I will tell you the one thing you do not want to lose your job over is non-compliance. I am one of those people, if I don't know something, I'm gonna pick up the phone. We have a federal programs director, I'm gonna ask her. We have a our district business manager. I'm gonna pick up the phone and ask him, can I spend money on this or that? You have to know the regulations and you have to know who your people are on a district level. Before I make a special education decision, I call my special education coordinator. She has people, the director has people that are in our buildings. I call them because non-compliance on IEPs, MSIS data, school checking accounts and funding, these are job killers. I'm just telling you honestly, these are things that people don't say, oh, you made a mistake. They ask the question, who did you reach out to before you made that decision? Who was the person that gave you permission? And if you don't have an answer to that, these are job killers. So you want to be the person who's always learning. And in order to be a forever, I can't remember the term right now, but a lifelong learner. If you want to be considered a lifelong learner, you better use your resources, your people resources, to make sure that you know what you're doing is in compliance. Oh, that's the end. So that's domain 5 and domain 6 wrapped up in a bow. And I will tell y'all, of all the 6 domains that you've learned, you have to know your people, right? People capital is the most important thing as a leader. Getting to know your teachers. My AP came in as brand new, as she was a former literacy specialist. And we sat down and she likes to move quick. And the first thing I said to her, I said, spend some time listening. And I said, I know I'm a chatty Cathy, but I like to know people. If you get to know your people, you can make decisions that won't backfire on you. And those of you who are serving in director roles, in these roles where you are already teacher leaders, or that you are a leader in some capacity, a director or such, or even athletic directors, You need to know who you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, because you can say something in a meeting that offends 80% of your staff. You may not come back from that. They're upset with you for the rest of the year. And I know in some of your faces, you're like, and they're going to be mad. And in some situations, they will be. But you don't want to fight your staff. You just don't. You want to be that person who's a good listener. And when you make decisions, you're transparent in saying, this is above me. And that's how I start. This is above me. This is a directive from the district. And my teachers will tell you, I tell them all the time, gainfully employed. I still have one more kid I have not sent to college. I have to work. I love what I do. I get to do what I do, but I clock in and clock out because I have to. Let's not forget that part, right? So being transparent in front of your people is the most important thing. And even on things that I ask them to do that I cannot share the full scope of why we're doing them, I even say that, guys, there is a reason behind this. And until it's released, I cannot share it. And if they keep asking, I say, okay, remember, gainfully employed. And I leave it just like that. That's me being transparent. When we start talking about a viable curriculum, that curriculum is for all students, accessible to all kids. Don't forget your EL kids. Don't forget your SPED kids. Don't forget your kids who are having a bad day and that doesn't have letters behind them. They don't have a 504. They don't have dyslexia. They don't have da 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 da. You have kids who come in and disrupt the instructional environment in 2 minutes because they had a bad day. They don't have a ruling. Don't immediately go to a punishment. Go to a listening session. I have my counselor grab those kids. Is something wrong with him today or her today? Go figure it out. And some days the teachers are mad because I didn't give them a consequence. No, I didn't. Their mama just gave them a consequence this morning. I can't. So just know your people. That's your staff. That's your students. That's your bus drivers, your cafeteria staff. Know your people. Domain 1, we are excellent at because we have to track data because we are an accountability state. There's no way around it. If you don't know how to analyze your data, if you are a coach, a specials teacher, you don't have a content area where it's testing, put yourself at a table. You need a seat at the table. I don't know an administrator interview that you're going to have that's not going to talk to you about accountability and tracking data. I don't know a district in Mississippi that does that. And that's private even, because even private schools want their kids to grow because their parents want them to grow. So know your stuff. If you're not in a place when you start meeting with your person for your practicum hours, say to them, hey, I don't teach a tested subject. I don't get invited to those PLCs where y'all are doing data. How do I get a seat at the table? I want to learn. That's what you need to say. It's 1, that's 2, that's 3. What am I missing? I'm missing something. One of these domains or not. I'm not hitting. But just know when you're going in and you're doing observations and feedbacks with teachers, you're not there for an I gotcha. You're not there to find what's wrong. I don't go in and I leave a sticky note. I keep sticky notes with me at all times because when I walk through, if I see something powerful, I write a quick little sticky and slap it on the desk. I acknowledge the positive in everything we do. Does that mean we never have a negative conversation? No, because we're human. And what do humans do? We make mistakes. I have to call teachers in for those mistakes. I do. And I am very transparent. When they come in my office, I say to them, this is one of those uncomfortable conversations that we have to have. I want you to walk in knowing this isn't me giving you a hamburger approach to life. I'm not going to tell you how great you are and then tell you what you did wrong and finish it on a great. You come in, I'm going to tell you what had happened, what was said, what was done. I'm going to give you time to tell me your side of it. And then I'm going to talk about how do we move forward. I may not ever touch on the fact that you're the best teacher in my building. I'm not, because today is not that day. Again, very transparent I am. And I am not a non-confrontational principal. You have to know, are you a person who confronts confrontation? Are you a person who shies away from it? I am not. I tell people all the time, I grew up with boys. I did not grow up in a female environment. I have brothers, I have male cousins, and you have to be tough if you want to play with them. And so that's who I am. I think more like that than I do the emotional side of things. And that's why God made my third child a girl. So I had to learn how to get more sensitive. But you have to know who you are as a leader. And that's what I like about this very first class, roles of the principal, because it gets your mind to thinking about all of those things. And it gets you to start formulating who you want to be as an administrator. If you work for a great administrator, spend time in her office. She can't talk to you in the middle of the day a lot of days, but if you got time to kill in the afternoons when everybody's gone, go sit in her office and listen, or his office and listen. Ask good questions. That is all I have for y'all. We do have a third virtual in February. I want to say it's February 8th, but all my dates run together most days. We'll have that last class. It's not as long as the first two. We don't have a PowerPoint. We're not doing all those things. It's just a meeting where we talk about our domains. You do all the talking, I do all the listening on that class, and we finish strong. This class always is one of my favorites because, again, it gets you to thinking about what is your role as an administrator. Any questions, any comments, any concerns before we get off of our call?
I have a question. I accidentally left my book yesterday in my classroom, and I went to get it this morning, and the school is locked. So I can't get in there to get my book to finish the domains 5 and 6. Do we have a way I can get a paper copy, or can somebody just send me the pages of those? Because I'm not going to be able to access it until Tuesday.
I don't mind sending it.
Okay.
Okay, I'll put my email, or you have my email on there. Okay, thank you so much.
I was looking for my book. I'm like, it's on my bookcase. I was gonna do it, but thank you, Leanne. That's that networking, guys. Networking. The principalship is the loneliest job you'll ever have. Elementary people never leave their building. Middle school people spend a lot of time in sports. High school people have so many things. It's the school that never sleeps. So this is a lonely job, y'all. And if you don't have an assistant principal in your building, you are literally all by yourself. Build communities. If you're in this cohort for the first time, share out a group me. Get something going. I know I said that in the first virtual. My little group me was such a great thing to have when I went through the doctoral program, because some people are like clerical people. They would put dates in and all of that, and it kept me together. And then couldn't find something or didn't understand something. It's always a good thing, but build community around this practice. This job is not getting any easier. It is not. I tell teachers that all the time. It is not getting any easier because parents want more, communities want more, and we are always the place that they get it from. So don't think you're on an island. Build community, and make sure you have partnerships in this work. That's all I have. Y'all have a beautiful weekend. Hopefully we'll get some snow because I just really want to touch it. And I want to go to work Tuesday. All of my teachers are praying for snow for Tuesday, but I want to go to work Tuesday. They don't. But it is what it is. Have a great weekend, guys. And if you need me, email me. And if I don't respond quickly, email me again. It does not hurt my feelings. Have a great one. Bye.